Welcome to U.S. Defense Line Channel. War, which has spread to the territory of Russia, raises concerns in Moscow. Increasing tension day by day causes an increase in violence in international moves. Explosion sounds were heard again from the territory of Russia. Ukrainian army launched simultaneous operations on many fronts. Thanks to these operations, secret warehouses were discovered and hundreds of areas were recaptured. Ukrainian troops choose such regions that their plans continue with strategic targets. Ukrainian forces continue to work to maintain controls on its territory. A senior official from Kharkiv announced that so far 544 sites in the country's second-largest region have been returned to the control of Ukrainian forces. However, he explained that 32 sites are still under the control of Russian forces, which is just under 2%. At the same time, the Ukrainian army found a secret warehouse during its advance on this front. Because the Russian army fled without even looking back, it leaves behind many ammunition and critical points. This happens because of the possibility of being besieged by Ukrainian troops. This time, Ukrainian units discovered and captured a Russian ammunition depot in Kharkiv. Many Russian military equipment was also confiscated. As it is known, thanks to the Russian army, which has left everything behind in recent weeks, the biggest source of ammunition for the Ukrainian army has been Russian ammunition. At the same time, the Ukrainian forces, strengthened with these munitions and the support from the countries, carried the war to Russian lands as a result of the operations they started. Russian border crossed. As we know, in recent days, successive explosions have been reported in the Belgorod and Kursk regions of Russia. With these explosions, an ammunition depot and critical points of Russia were seriously damaged. Moreover, these explosions took place after the Russian troops attacked infrastructures in and around Kyiv, after the president of Ukraine Zelensky swore revenge. According to last-minute statements, explosion sounds echoed again in the Belgorod region of Russia. It was reported that smoke rose in a critical area in the region. Authorities in the region claimed that these explosions were the result of shelling. It is known that Ukraine has reclaimed areas close to the Russian border, especially in Kharkiv, in the northeast of the country, in recent days. As the territory taken on the Russian border increases, Ukraine's superiority and attack power on the border increase. This situation puts the Russian army in a state of panic. On the southern front, the Ukrainian army continues its operations. This time, there were explosions on a critical bridge. Ukraine launched a major offensive operation in the southern Kherson region. In fact, many ammunition and additional soldiers were sent to the region. On top of these, many areas on the front began to be taken back. At the same time, Ukrainian troops in this Kherson region do not want to allow passage to Russia. Ukrainian army, which had hit many logistics points before, once again struck the Antonivka Bridge, which is constantly used by Russian troops, and a crossing that was built nearby. It was reported that 6 explosions were heard from the area during the night. Russian soldiers and equipment, which had been actively moving to the left bank of the area in recent days, were using this bridge crossing. However, the use of the bridge has now become almost impossible. Ukrainian army does not want Russia to provide supply flow to the country, thanks to its many moves towards such critical points. Thus, unless the Russian soldiers on the Ukrainian fronts can reach sufficient equipment, they will experience serious decreases in their attack power. This will make it very difficult to achieve success on the Russian side. But Russia continues to play its last cards. In the past day, Russian forces have carried out more than 65 attacks with 28 airstrikes, 11 missile strikes and multiple launch rocket systems. It was announced that Russian forces attacked more than 25 places, including the Siversk, Terny and Sloviansk regions. It was also reported that it deployed cruise, air-to-ground and anti-aircraft guided missiles in the attack on Ukrainian territory. It was also announced that it has deployed over 10 Iranian-made Shahed 136 unmanned aerial vehicles, of which more than half of the Russian forces were launched from Belarus. It seems that Russia is trying to include Belarus in the war. In recent days, attacks from these lands have increased. However, Ukraine announced that it is ready for attacks from this region. Ukraine, on the other hand, carried out 10 airstrikes in one day with planes. It was announced that 6 of these attacks were made on the place where the weapons and equipment of the Russian forces are concentrated, and 4 on the anti-aircraft defense system of Russia. However, Ukraine's air defense forces shot down a Ka-52 helicopter, 16 unmanned aerial vehicles, including 14 Iranian-made Shahed-136 kamikaze drones, and 6 Russian cruise missiles. Ukraine's rocket and artillery units also announced that Russian forces hit an ammunition depot, 3 Russian command posts, 6 points where Russian forces and military equipment are concentrated, electronic warfare system and 6 points, including a pontoon crossing used by Russian forces and a bridge. With these moves, it is seen that Russia's ammunition is subject to serious reductions. General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine continues to share the latest losses of Russian forces. It was reported that the Russian forces destroyed 6 cruise missiles, 9 artillery systems, 20 armored combat vehicles, 13 tanks, 1 helicopter and 25 unmanned aerial vehicles in one day. Losses of the Russian forces are increasing day by day. Since the start of the war in February, a significant number of soldiers have lost their ammunition. It is known that the Russian forces have destroyed approximately 5,255 armored combat vehicles, close to 2,570 tanks and more than 1,310 unmanned aerial vehicles on the territory of Ukraine to date. These ammunition losses show that every unit of Ukraine can make very accurate moves and that Russia's defense is extremely inadequate. Alexei Haromov, deputy head of the Main Operations Directorate of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, shared important details from the fronts. Haromov explained that the Russian forces are mostly trying to reach the borders of the Donetsk region and to hold certain parts of the Kherson, Zaporizhia, Kharkiv and Mykolaiv regions under their control. Stating that the Russian forces also continue to accumulate military ammunition, Haromov stated that they see this as a compensation for the Russian forces' inability to advance on the front, as the reason for Russia's attacks on energy infrastructures in Ukraine, using various missiles, unmanned aerial vehicles and cruise missiles. Haromov also made statements about the situation in Belarus, drawing attention to the increase in the aggressive words of Russian President Putin and Belarusian leader Lukashenko. He announced that there was a new threat of attack on the western part of the Belarusian border in the north of Ukraine. He stated that Russian forces may attack this region, as the main weapons and military equipment routes used for aid from Western countries are located in the western part of the Ukraine-Belarus border. Haromov also drew attention to the increase in aircraft and other military equipment deployed by Russia in Belarus. Belarus allows Russia to use Belarusian territory to launch drones and missiles on Ukrainian territory. It was also announced that Russia has placed Russian MiG-31 aircraft in Belarusian airports and that these aircraft may be armed with Kinzhal cruise missiles. According to the latest satellite photos, it has been determined that the Russian forces and equipment at the Zyabrovka airbase, which is close to the Ukrainian border of Belarus, has increased. It was also reported that the top priority of the Russian forces is to stop the offensive of the Ukrainian forces in Kherson and also to protect their own positions. He also reported that Russian forces are constantly striving to restore crossings on the Dnipro River so that support in this region can be facilitated. Ukrainian armed forces, on the other hand, does not allow this and continues to attack the places where the Russian forces and military equipment are concentrated, their passages and logistics supply routes. If moves towards such critical points continue in the future, the ammunition of the Russian troops and the logistics points they can use will gradually decrease. This situation will make the losses of Russia inevitable in the regions. On the Ukrainian side, the successes will increase gradually. War has now become critical. Every step taken will determine the fate of countries. For this reason, there is no margin for error for either side. Otherwise, if one party makes a mistake, the other party will turn it into an opportunity. We'll see what happens in the next few days. We have reached the end of another video. You can support us by liking the video. You can easily follow new videos by subscribing. I wish you all a war-free day. See you.